Hi, godly seers. Happy Sunday, everybody. Hope you're doing well. I'm doing okay. And today I'm on here to encourage someone and to encourage myself as well. I had a pastor friend of mine that used to mentor me. He's not a pastor friend of mine, he was my pastor, my mentor. Recently, I was remembering some of the advice he used to give me, some of the comments he used to make to me. And there's a time he said to me, Godly, you do know what to do. Most of the time, you're very good at encouraging other people, telling them what they're supposed to do. But when it comes to yourself, sometimes you forget, what is in you or what you're capable of doing. And he used to compare it to something he called a little girl spirit. I was just thinking about this, like, what does that really mean? Like, it's almost like a sabotage. Like, you know what you're supposed to do, but when you're hit with certain situations, you coil away, just like a little girl, like you tell yourself, oh, you can't do this. So your mind tells you that this is too big for you or whatever. Things are, of that nature. But in my situation in particular today, I found myself wanting to encourage myself and to encourage someone out there that our God is able to make us, so superior, like in different situations, in different circumstances, even around, the enemies or the different challenges that may, be around us. I was thinking about different scenarios even within the Bible when God told Moses that he would make him so powerful that Pharaoh himself would think he was a god. You see, imagine God giving you a glimpse of his power, around other people, of doing so many great things in your life whilst others get to watch. And I remember the situation as well. Okay, before I remember, I tell you about the particular situation for me. Another way that I've been trying to put this into perspective is thinking about the journey of the children of Israel in the Old Testament. When you look at the entire story of, the things they went through, the things they suffered, the major enemies that they fought, all the way from the Egyptians to the ancient inhabitants of Canaan, the promised land, the Jebusites, Hittites, the Ites, basically all of them. And we see that they go to a point where they defeated most of them, but out of disobedience, there are some nations that they left behind that ended up becoming major difficulties for them, later on, as we see. But the same way they were fighting those enemies, and their enemies were certainly different from, what we fight today. Theirs were very much, physical, but here today we have a lot of spiritual issues going on. Sometimes the battles are also physical, but also just like in their day, when they fought over one enemy, in most cases another one came up. Like we see that, they had other enemies that as time went by, other enemies came on the scene. Some enemies were encountered before they even came to the promised land, like the Moabites, the nearby, the outskirts of the, of Canaan land, the Moabites, the likes of the Ammonites, and other enemies that the Philistines that, came, during the reign of King Saul and David and became, a massive hindrance. And then later on, other enemies like, the Babylonians, the Persians, like what I'm trying to say is that when you finish over with one enemy, another one arises. It's like learning the same principle of how these people, overcame that. Most of the time, they found themselves in these situations because they were within a season where they stepped away from God, stepped away from obeying the things that God has asked them to obey, and God will back off and leave them to their own devices, and then their enemies will become more powerful eventually until they go back, to obeying God and, humbling themselves and inviting God back into their lives, and then God will raise someone and, lead them into battle and then victories and so on and so forth. So, but my point today is this, that regardless of what enemy you're facing, whatever way you want to name it, or whichever challenge that you're faced with, I've got some things that are kind of, challenging, that I look at them and I'm like, okay, I need to position myself. I need to now look at this issue that is before me and also use the same tactic and remember how God helped his people, remember how he's helped me, how he's helping me today, how he's helped me in the past. And one of the biggest scenarios that I was forced to remember is a situation where my very first, almost I would say, permanent job within the UK, or real job, I would say, very, very young age. And I think one of my first proper job, without knowing, I think I was very, very hardworking. I went to work telling myself, okay, I'm gonna work. I wasn't trying to compete with anybody, but it was a difficult situation, but I figured out ways of how to, you know, attract customers, speak to them, and be bold. I was just doing me, not realizing that what I was doing actually was working, and encouraged other workers to try and do what I'm doing. And it so happened that within that particular company, there was only one top worker and was based at a different branch, I think in London, Brent Cross, which was at the time the highest, in the biggest, you know, what do you call it, branch of the same business. And I was based at a Birmingham Bullring right at the beginning, when the Bullring was just being established, when it was first built. Long story short, because of that hard work, by the grace of God, the news got out. There's this top worker. She's a very young girl, very hardworking. It got the attention of the managers, of the top bosses. The company was owned by a lady. She had about I think over 20-something branches all across the UK, in every big shopping center. So the owner came down, you know, to see me, to see this young girl, along with that team. Before long, one thing led to another. The manager that we had at the time, I don't know what happened. The manager was sacked, and I was approached to say, Godly, we know you're very young. I was the youngest in the workplace. Everyone was older than me. I just come up to, you know, the working age. But I was promoted to being a manager. I was given my own office. I'd never managed anybody before. Like I said, this is my first proper job. Had a fax machine, you know, like everything that I need. And I didn't even know what to do with them. I was put in charge of, you know, obviously the business, the bank details for the account. I'm the one that tells the company how much money they earn on a daily basis. I have to go to, you know, the bank and, you know, bank the money. And in some cases, sometimes within a day, I'll bank about 5,000, 3 grand, something like that within a day. It was doing really well. But what happened, like with favor, sometimes comes a lot of enemies as well. It comes a lot of jealousy and, you know, a lot of other things. But for me, because I hadn't really caught on with the season that I was in, the favor of God, the grace that was raising me, taking me, you know, higher and higher, I wasn't necessarily paying attention. I just thought, okay, things are just happening. The top bosses will come and visit. Like I said, we had a regional manager that he would just come up and be like, oh, Godly, I'm taking you for a coffee. He would take me up, you know, we sit down for a coffee. It's like, oh, how is work doing? How are the workers behaving? And then as we're walking around to go talk with different workers, I think I remember he said to a particular lady that, oh, why are you not in a full uniform today? Me, I will let them, because like I said, I was the youngest. Sometimes I was a bit intimidated to, you know, tell the workers like what they're supposed to do. I was in charge of recruitment, everything, and I'd never been in that position before. This is my, like I said, this is my first job, proper job. So because I think the worker, instead of responding why they didn't have a full uniform on, me, I was just quiet watching the conversation. They tried to attack me, saying, oh, Godly, they said something. I can't remember exactly what comment they made. And the regional manager got really upset and said, okay, you, because of the way you're speaking to Godly, I'm sacking you on the spot. Actually, I'm not sacking you, but I'm moving you to a different branch that wasn't doing really well. Within the West Midlands, there's another branch within, I think, around Sutton Coldfield or whatever. It was like, okay, I'm moving you to there. And the worker didn't like it because she knew that side didn't do very well. But instead of putting it on the regional manager that said these things to her, that changed her, she took it personal. She took it to me that, oh, this is all Godly's fault. This man, you know, did this to me. And this girl started telling everybody that, you know, she was going to deal with me. For whatever reason, she started telling people that she has ways that she's going to do something to get me deported from the country. Me, I was hearing these things, like I said. I didn't know what to do with them. I was really young. I was just in a bubble. I'm like, oh, I don't know what's happening, but these things are happening. Fair enough, I don't know. Like, you hear someone saying these things to you, what do you do? But one thing I didn't know what to do even back then. I just went home and I started praying. I just prayed to God. I said, Lord, you know I have nothing to do with this. This woman I've been considering her as a friend, nothing to do with me, what has happened to her. But I don't know why she would feel, she would send people to say to me that within a few days I'm going to be deported or something along those lines. If I tell you without exaggerating, the people that may be on here that know that story, that know my background, will be able to, you know, verify this story, to tell you that within about 3 days, not more than 3 days after this lady had left the job, after she was making threats, sending me different people to say I was going to be deported, she was instead deported. What I didn't know is that she didn't have the right documents to work in the country. She left that job and she went and got a career job. And on the very first day of entering, the immigration hit, seized everybody, and she was among the people that were seized. And within a day, she was on the plane and deported back to Uganda. Now, again, the news broke out that the same person that had been threatening Godly with deportation had been deported on the spot. So people started saying, Godly, I'm a witch, and I must be going to a witch doctor to see all these things, either to do all these things. How is this favor following me? How are people threatening me with certain things, and the exact same thing they're threatening me with is happening to them? But truth be told, it was just God fighting my battles. I saw the situation going from, that to where actually before I even got in that position, before I was given that job, there was another manager that was brought into the company. This man, when he started to see the favor that the regional manager is coming and bypassing him and calling me to speak to me instead, I think he became jealous. He started treating me really, really, really bad. He would isolate me. I would just be quiet and numb because I didn't know what to say to him. Like I said, everyone was older than me. He would go and buy lunch and give every worker, and not give me anything and give me the heavy tasks. I remember particular psalms that I prayed. I'll go home and say, God, I don't know what to say to you, but I'll bury myself in reading the psalms and surrendering the situation to God. And within a very short period of time, the managers themselves came back and said, look, they are moving this particular manager and giving his job to me. They moved him to another site again that wasn't doing too well. The man, if he was a white manager, way older than me as well, I think if he knew about Witchcraft, he would have joined the other gang that was saying, oh, this girl, she must be doing something, like, how are these things happening? But long story short, what I'm saying is that, yes, God can make us, powerful. God can make us, can raise us to a level that even we ourselves have not, dreamt of becoming, of getting to, if we'd only put our trust in him, if we only follow the same principles like what was the children of Israel, the requirements of what they had to do back then, returning to God, obeying the word of God, is the same principle that guides us today, like where we're falling away and certain calamities are coming to us, running back to God and trusting him with all our battles, the same way that, yes, I may not have a physical Philistine fighting against me, but I can look at someone that is rising up against me in my workplace. That is my Philistine. And I would know what to do about that Philistine. I could, take them before God and say, look, the same way you've done these miraculous things in the Bible, where you cause the enemies to start fighting against themselves, where you, even if it needed an intervention of an angel that would come and slaughter them all, whether it needed them, you causing blindness, that, they go blind in battle and start killing each other instead. Whichever means that God can deal with your enemy, he can deal with our enemies. He can make us superior. He can fight certain battles that the enemy that has been fighting you today, that difficulty that has become, that is on repeat, God can defeat it to the point that, just like we read about King David or King Solomon, that because his dad, King David, fought so much and fought so many enemies, his own reign was so peaceful that there are enemies that were defeated so bad that the thought of ever attacking the children of Israel never crossed their mind again. They never came anywhere again. That we see the journey of the children of Israel, like as they coming from Egypt, some of the neighboring nations to Canaan, the promised land, were rising up to fight against them, not for anything, not because they've done something to them, but because of the fear. The Bible says that fear gripped these nations. That have you heard the miracles that this God has been doing for his people? Like, people would dread to hear them coming because they know what happens once they step foot on the land. They know you cannot fight against them, and win the battle. They know it's a won battle. So I'm believing God to snap out of that little girl spirit, like what my pastor used to say, and that you snap out of it if it's an issue, for you as well. But you find stories of things that have happened in your life to encourage yourself over and over again. And then, if you can't find stories where God has done those things in your life already, you read the Bible and be encouraged by what he has done. For his children, the children of Israel, all the things that he's done around the people in your life, for the testimonies you've grown up hearing that talk about his goodness and the things that he's able to do. So anyway, have a blessed Sunday. I hope you managed to pick something out of it. And I pray that God will help all of us, to arise, and kick that little girl spirit out of sight, that we are these giants, you know, that he has made us, that he will count us worthy, or energize us and bring us back to that place of ruling and dominating our enemy, just like he did for Moses. That Pharaoh, his enemy, was in a position of thinking, oh my goodness, are you some form of a god? So anyway, thank you very much and have a nice Sunday. Bye.